everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Nicole Forbes with Dennis's 7Ds, and today's topic is summer vegetable gardening. And the kind of subtitle of this class is Beyond Tomatoes, and that's because we traditionally have dedicated quite a bit of talking time, class attention to tomatoes and tomato varieties, and for good reason, of course. Lots of us grow tomatoes at home. If you're interested in that, go backwards in time digitally, or if you're capable to do that yourself, and look for videos that we have done in the past. Just a couple weeks ago was a tomato variety showcase, and in 2020 we had a great video on how to grow the best tomatoes at home. Today's class handout is attached to the description of the video or of the blog of the class. So you can click on that to get kind of a copy of this handout. The variety and range of things that we can grow in our summer vegetable garden really open up as the weather warms. And so I first want to kind of set the stage as to what do we mean by summer vegetable gardening. Now, here in the Pacific Northwest, we actually have kind of what you would break into 3 gardening seasons, 3 vegetable or harvest type seasons, 3 growing seasons throughout the year. We have a cool spring season, followed by a warm summer season, and then again a cooler and wetter fall going into a fairly mild winter. That allows us to grow cool season edibles in fall and winter for that season of harvesting, either planting late summer and harvesting in fall or early winter, or even wintering over certain crops. And then again, early spring, planting things like peas, salad greens, root crops that can thrive in the cooler and wetter weather conditions while we're waiting for the day and nighttime temperatures to rise as they do in the summer, and also for that sun to affect our soil and bring our soil temperature up to appropriate temperature conditions. Now, I have talked before about the difference between in-ground gardening and raised bed or container gardening. And one of the big differences is that the warm summer days are able to heat up a raised bed or a container vegetable planting medium. The soil warms up more, the bed warms up faster when our daytime temperatures are warm. They can also swing a little bit more dramatically in nighttime temperatures as well. So there is a little bit more fluctuation in early season planting your raised beds, but they are drier, they're weed free usually, and a little bit easier to plant in the early season. In-ground soil takes longer to warm up with spring temperatures, and as we get into late spring, early summer, we finally see our temperatures coming up into the kind of bottom range of summer planting comfort zone. So what I do at home is I use a soil thermometer on a pretty religious basis. This is a simple thermometer that is a pretty sturdy construction. It's a nice metal casing. It gives you a quick response, so within 3 to 5 minutes you've got your soil measured. It goes directly into the ground with the little knot sticking up. I always recommend paint your knot on top. Paint this little top piece a bright color so it doesn't disappear in the garden. But the readings here go from minus 10 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So minus 10 to 120, a pretty broad range. On the back of the soil thermometer, and zooming in, is it backwards?
Nope.
Okay, so there's a range of temperatures at which certain crops will actually grow on the back of the thermometer, which gives you like a quick reading. Pull it out. Today I pulled my soil thermometer out of the ground and it was 60 degrees, which is like I said, the floor, the bottom of the threshold for warm season veggies to be planted. So at 60 degrees, tons of plants are suitable for planting, including some of the very beginnings of our warmest requirements. So watermelon can go in at 60, squash, cucumbers can go in at 60 degrees, as well as, of course, tomatoes, they can even go in a little earlier, 50 degrees. Nothing really has a higher floor, so 60 is about the hottest, the coolest that even the hot vegetables require to germinate or to be transplanted out. But again, things like something that we don't grow much here in the Pacific Northwest, okra would prefer to go into 70 degree soil. And you'll see for transplants also on your soil thermometer, cantaloupe, cucumbers, peppers, pumpkins, squash, and watermelon. 65 would even be a little bit more comfortable for them. So just because we're at the bottom at 60 doesn't mean that we want to push it. And so even waiting another week to 10 days for our temperature to kind of stabilize and for the soil to really hit that 60 and above would be better for some of those more vulnerable crops. You can always find that out from your soil thermometer. This is, I just received really kind of sad and shocking news about soil thermometers yesterday, and I'm going to share it with everybody. Apparently, this company, Rapid Test or Luster Leaf, is going to discontinue the soil thermometer. So we're buying like multiple cases so that we have them in stock, but at some point we will run out. I'm going to buy a couple of extra because, you know, that's how I roll. But maybe I'm going to start a run on soil thermometers. Maybe that's okay. But perhaps we'll convince Luster Leaf to not discontinue the product because I find it extremely useful. Now, nighttime temperatures are also one of those measurements. And of course we can, you know, check our weather app and see what the nighttime temperatures are. It's right now, we have some pretty warm nights. I was hot last night in my bedroom upstairs in an old 100-year-old house in Portland. But the next week that we see, I have a 10-day forecast in my phone that's showing maybe by midweek next week, we're gonna cool down a little bit and even see some temperatures back into the high 40s. So we, you know, again, it's all a touch and go in May. Usually we're getting that green light by mid-May to plant our warm season crops, but always a good idea to then monitor other conditions and possibly even be prepared to cover or protect your plants. If we had a weird May hailstorm or that kind of thing, which who knows, we still could. So when we look at all of the options of what could be planted this time of year, we have those early spring crops. We have the option of several of the crops that can also be planted towards fall. And so in many cases for my limited vegetable garden space, for example, I'm trying to really focus in the heat of summer on the plants that won't grow for me at any other time of year. So although we can grow cauliflower for summer vegetable gardening, cauliflower is also a plant that can be planted earlier in spring. So by late February, early March, you can plant cauliflower and be almost harvesting it right now. Or you can plant cauliflower and broccoli and those things again towards late July, and then have those plants harvested by Thanksgiving or right around November-ish. So when you've got options of plants that can grow in those shoulder seasons, the brassicas, cauliflower, kale, broccoli, those are ones. Lettuces and salad greens are a whole nother option that again are cool season tolerant. In all of those instances, then I try to selectively choose to grow, like I said, things that I couldn't put in later in the season to harvest for fall and winter. And so that really comes down to kind of the heart of summer vegetables. And summer crops other than tomatoes would include eggplant, peppers, both hot and bell or sweet type peppers, tomatillos, We have all types of beans, string beans, shelling beans, edamame, so soybeans you could grow as well. Cucumbers of all types, slicing, pickling, English, Armenian. The kind of world of squashes, so of course zucchinis, green, yellow, Romanesco type, not Romanesco, yeah, Romanesco I think, the rib type zucchinis. We have a really cool zucchini called Tromboncino, which has a curly kind of end to the zucchini itself. Then winter squashes, acorn, spaghetti, delicata squash. These can also be planted this time of year. Pumpkins, also in the squash family, so pumpkins can go in. Eggplant, if I didn't already mention eggplant, I'm running through my list and maybe I'm repeating. And corn. So if you, again, consult your handout, you'll see a lot of these plants are kind of listed out in a little bit of kind of crop detail for each type of plant. But I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly to kind of set the stage and help you hopefully make some of your selections. Now, there are, although I said, maybe don't fill your vegetable gardens with, vegetable garden beds with things that you could plant at other times of the year and focus on summer crops. If you eat a lot of lettuce and salads and things, it's perfectly fine. Lettuce and salad greens usually are pretty small plants that you can often continually harvest, and they're a pretty quick, pretty short crop. So many lettuces can be fine just sort of tucked in amongst some of the more developed, slower to develop plants in your garden, so that you are sharing space, but by the time the larger plant, such as an eggplant or a bell pepper, needs the space, you've probably already been able to harvest your lettuce or get quite a bit out of it. Now, there are a lot of different varieties of lettuce in the world, and what you will notice as you're shopping different varieties, either from seed or from starts, is that at this time of year, because we know lettuce to be a cold tolerant, kind of moist and mild temperature loving plant, then we want to, at this time of year, be looking for lettuce varieties that have some heat tolerance. So if the lettuce prefers to be cool and it doesn't have the heat tolerance, then often as summer temperatures rise, or as we have some extremes, lettuce will begin to taste bitter and potentially will start to bolt, which means that it gets tall and forms a flower, which then means that kind of your lettuce is at the end. So flowering lettuce, or as your lettuce starts to get really tall, those usually are responding to extreme kind of fluctuations or heat in the daytime. Now, something like this is Roxy, which is a butterhead lettuce. 60 days to harvest, but really, I can eat this leaf right now, so it's not like we have to wait for the lettuce to become lettuce. It's ready right away. Roxy will make a loose head, like a butterhead style, kind of a nice loose head within that 60-day time. And we see it's on the tag, says heat tolerant, and the other thing that it says is extra slow bolt. So bolting, like bolting upwards, bolting is the term that's used to refer to that forming a flower which changes its flavor and is kind of the end of its life. So not only is Roxy heat tolerant, but slow to bolt. Two things that we would want to see in a summer salad green or lettuce option. Jericho is another great variety that has heat tolerance, and this is another romaine, or a romaine style. So butterhead, romaine is Jericho. Jericho is like, again, about 60 days, 57 days. And then Red Sails here. Red Sails is a leaf lettuce, and it is, again, crisp texture, delicate flavor, heat tolerant, extra slow bolt. Notice several of the lettuces that I'm showing are red. Now, red lettuce is great because, of course, it has a lot of antioxidants, so extra healthy for us, I guess. But the red color tends to help the plants with their heat tolerance. So if you're looking, just kind of quickly zooming in on the lettuce varieties out there, and there's still quite a few, focus in on the red ones if you're looking for that heat tolerant type. Now, beans. I think I started alphabetically. I just jumped to lettuce because they're in the front. Beans can be either planted from seed or as starts right now. Now, if you see the beans that we have here as transplant starts, first of all, we've got at least 3 stalks in one. I've got, well, 3 good stalks. There's a 4th that's gotten its head chopped off, but 3 little starts in each pot, which means that these are crowded. And ideally, we would want to separate them down to 1 plant per hole. Already at the point that these are at, their roots are most likely completely intertwined. So trying to delicately tease apart the roots and take them apart is most likely going to result in a transplant shock that causes severe stress on the plant, if not death. So we would be better off just snipping, cutting right at the soil line, the extra plants, to reduce crowding. You could put them in the ground and leave them for a week just to make sure that you don't have a hungry fleet of slugs that come rampaging through your garden and eat everything up. But eventually you would need to make sure that these aren't crowded together by reducing that down to 1. The 2 beans that I've got here are different in not only variety, they're both string bean style, but Maxibel, which is a really long, kind of pencil thin, delicious string bean. This is a bush bean. So Maxibel comes also as a pole bean, but this variety here, which is clearly labeled on the pot as a bush bean, means that it's not going to vine. It doesn't need a big trellis or a teepee. Bush beans only end up at about 2 feet tall and almost as wide. So a nice little plant, knee-high, easy to pick. Plant them in rows so that, of course, you can get to both sides of them. And this Maxibella is ready to harvest in 57 days. Now we've also got pole beans, and one of the most popular varieties of pole beans is Kentucky Wonder. This again has been grown for a long time, another 57 days to maturity, but we're looking at a variety that needs something to climb, easily 3 to 5 feet tall, and then once the blooms start to form on the bean plants themselves, then they're actually going to be able to, you'll be able to get your first harvest about 2 weeks after the flowers begin to form. So on either bush beans or pole beans, you begin to see the bloom set and then start watching for beans to form about 2 weeks later. And then you'll want to harvest about every 3 to 5 days, picking as much as you can to get the beans while they're young, and of course to keep them productive, you need to keep harvesting or picking them. It is also really important that beans are mulched and kind of regularly watered, whether they are string beans or pole beans. Beans are very shallow rooted, and so they are they're sensitive to drought and drying out. So we do want to definitely give them as much water as they need to keep them productive. And for me, I direct seed beans into the ground. They come up just really quickly if you just put the seed right in the ground. But if you want to get a start, like I said, you can get a head start this way by putting in transplants. Now carrots, I ended up bringing the carrots in today. Carrots are on your list. They are another one that can be planted this time of year, but they can also be planted in the shoulder seasons or the cool seasons. So carrots can take a little while, so 65, 75 days, depending on the varieties of carrots. And they are best in loose garden soil. So raised beds are great for carrots. They're pretty close to neutral for their pH requirements, so you may need to add a little bit of lime. It's better, again, to direct seed carrots if you can, but the seeds are very tiny and it can be difficult to keep them watered this time of year. So we do carry carrots as starts, that you can plant out from transplant starts. Again, thinning out those starts until you have an individual carrot for every about 1.5 to 2 inches is critical. So allowing carrots to grow crowded together without thinning as they mature will produce very small, inferior carrots, and that'll be one of your first problems. If you do thin appropriately, then again you want to make sure that your soil is nice and loose when you're planting carrots. Like our raised bed container mix is really nice for carrots. And you also don't want to over-fertilize carrots. So over-fertilizing, too much nitrogen causes those like forked and really funny shaped carrots. I mean, that's fun if that's what you want to grow, carrots that look like they're all intertwined and like little people and things. That tends to come from high fertilization. And then also, carrots will kind of heave a little bit up out of the ground as they're growing. So you'll see their kind of shoulders begin to show above the soil level. And you can gently pile a little bit of soil around the tops of them as they grow to keep those tops of the carrot root itself underground that doesn't get the green shoulders that it would otherwise. So when you harvest carrots, you can store most carrots for a long time, but you want to take the tops off, so just remove that long carrot top before storing. And then, as I said, carrots often can be grown again as a fall and winter crop as early as late July for harvest towards early November. Corn, another crop that is easy to sow from seed, but we also offer it available as transplanted starts. Now, when you want to really have a wide selection of varieties, that's where you would go to the seed rack to see, 6 or 7 different varieties of corn, as opposed to what's available out there in the vegetable section. There's maybe 2 or 3 varieties right now. This is an organic variety that I just picked called Illusion, and Illusion corn is a white. This is an extra early white corn, so 72 days. It is great flavor, 8-inch ears, so they give us kind of the size of the ears, which is great. But again, when you see a 6-pack of corn, we've got 3 starts in most of the transplant cells. So we would need to cut, again, trying to pull these apart is usually not a successful endeavor for any of the plants or you. So snip them right at the soil line, grow 1. And if you often look at the kind of individual plants in a cell, you'll see one that is either centered or thicker diameter or just a more robust looking plant. That's the one to keep. Snip the thin, tiny ones that look, kind of runty and small. So I would take these 2 out and keep this nice one that's at least about a pencil thick in diameter. Now, corn is a heavy feeder, which means corn needs kind of the opposite of carrots when I say don't over fertilize them. Corn needs a pretty good supply of nutrition and on a regular basis. So when we plant corn, we want to plant it with a good slow release organic vegetable food that's right in the hole. And then as corn comes up, you can feed it about every 7 to 10 days or so with a liquid fertilizer. And this is high grow, so this is 4% nitrogen with no phosphorus. This is fine for early stage growing of corn to keep it green and help it to grow fast, knee-high by the 4th of July, right? And then you can follow that up with either a bloom fertilizer or an all-purpose as it gets closer to flowering, so after the 4th. 323 is the all-purpose, and the bloom is 131. So corn is another one of those cool plants that needs wind pollination. So it is recommended that you actually plant corn in blocks of at least 4 by 4 rows. So 4 rows at least 4 feet long, or 4 rows at least 6 feet long, to give you a square planting of corn so that as the wind blows through the corn, the pollen will move from plant to plant and help it pollinate. Corn in a single row often just, the pollen will blow away from the corn plants themselves and miss, the whole point of wind pollination. Now, speaking of pollination, cucumbers are one of those plants that requires pollination of the flower as well, but by insects instead of wind. So cucumbers and squash, I'll also mention, really the performance of these plants can be made or not by the presence of pollinators in your garden. The packets of seed that I've recently seen on squash, for example, like zucchini, will even say on the packet to plant a flower near your zucchini to increase pollinator traffic and up your odds of pollination. So I use a couple of really basic flowers in my vegetable garden. One is Borage, B-O-R-A-G-E. Borage is an edible flower that it's an annual, but it self-seeds and just kind of now persists in my garden. I pull it out like a weed if I don't want it, where it's growing, because it kind of moves around. But borage is in bloom almost every month of the year right now, just as random seedlings at different generations in my garden. It's a beautiful blue. It's an easy care plant that, like I said, I got a pack of seeds or plant once, and now I have my own kind of consistent supply. Borage, being that it is blue and a really kind of unique flower shape, it's kind of a little inverted star almost, is highly attractive to honeybees and other pollinators. So that's their number one favorite in my garden. But I also then will plant a marigold, and this is kind of a single kind of old-fashioned marigold. This is called the Gem series that we have back in our edible section, because of course marigold flowers are also edible. But the marigold blooms will bring in more beneficial insects and pollinators to my garden as well. And another one of my favorites in the vegetable garden to lure pollinators is sweet Alyssum. And that's another one that you can either sow from seed or buy a couple of jumbo packs and just plant some sweet Alyssum around it. It's a little low ground cover in the garden that is also loved by pollinators. So cucumbers also come in that wide range as I was talking about. There's lemon cucumbers, which grow in a round ball and have a kind of a nice tart flavor to them. They're great for snacking. You kind of eat them like an apple. There's pickling cucumbers, burpless cucumbers, which again are the kind of variety of cucumber that does not give you gas. There are thinner skinned or thicker skinned cucumbers, English, Armenian, really again a wide range of cucumbers. They are available as transplants, or you can direct seed them into the garden. So just put the seed in the ground once the weather is 65 or warmer, really. Same with transplants. 60, we're pushing it. We could wait another week or so and we'll be probably at 65. And cucumbers like to be between 5.5 and 7. So not usually necessary pH-wise to add lime or anything to our soil. If it's down in that 5.5, they're fine with that. It's a little bit of a dance early in the season to keep cucumbers moist enough so that they don't stress out in the midday heat, but that we don't overwater them in their tiny root phase, that they get root rotted and waterlogged. So keeping them moist but not overly wet is critical in the early development stage. It's also a great crop to grow on a trellis. So I have, when we're talking about beans, cucumbers, there are trellis options for your garden that include, everything from like things you can get at the hardware store. I have this cool bamboo trellis that really kind of expands or contracts. You could make it really, really long and short, or you could make it a little bit narrower and with more height. This would be great for cucumbers to climb. And then with beans, kind of the same thing. So this is a 4-foot high bamboo teepee that you can stretch way out if you want. Grow peas or beans up it. Again, you could do a cucumber up something like this as well, or make it a little bit narrower for more height. And these, of course, can be folded up and stored when they're not in use as well. So bamboo's not going to last forever, but it should last you at least a season or two. I use tomato cages and some other things also for trellises at home. And you can just pound, some good like 1x1 or 2x2 wooden stakes into the ground, nice and taut between them, and use something like this trellis netting. This is 5 feet by 15 feet. Kind of stretch it across and secure it to the netting if you wanted to do something a little bit more temporary. When cucumbers, again, they love the heat, so they're gonna start to develop pretty quickly once it gets nice and warm. And trellising or keeping them growing up not only saves space in your garden, but keeps the cucumber fruits often away from slugs and other pests, and grows straight fruit as well, or straight cucumbers rather than cucumbers that are that happen to be curled. Now, I mean, if you want a curvy cucumber, then let it lay on the ground, and it's probably going to take different shapes. But hanging is what keeps them really as straight as possible. It's one of my favorite plants to grow in the vegetable garden. Is not terribly commonly grown. And I think that, again, it's because we don't use it a lot in standard American cooking, and that's eggplant. So there's multiple varieties, like many things, there's multiple varieties of eggplant. I have here a more traditional eggplant. This is Imperial Black Beauty. This happens to be an heirloom variety, but it's that kind of plump bottom, kind of pear-shaped, deep purple fruit. 80 days to maturity on Imperial Black Beauty. And then Ichiban, which is this beautiful plant here. Ichiban is actually a long, narrow eggplant that is used more in Asian dishes, and a little bit more common with varieties of cooking where we associate more Italian kind of cooking with the more bulbous eggplant. Ichiban here is 70 to 80 days, so ripens a little bit quicker, but eggplants in general really need the heat of summer to produce. So we're talking 80 to 90 degrees is when they are most responsive and growing and flowering and fruiting. Excuse me. You can also use things like mulch to warm up the soil of eggplants, and they prefer to grow in raised beds and containers because that's the soil that can warm up the most versus in-ground soil, which just doesn't necessarily always get up to 90 degrees. Now, speaking of, again, one that needs a lot of heat, there's melons that we can talk about, and it is really fun to grow melons here, partially because it just seems like such a delicacy, such an unusual thing for us to grow. Here I have two little baby melons, and that just really shows you how quickly they come out of the ground. You could start melons from seed, direct sown into the garden, or you could plant from starts. And today, here at the Lake Oswego Garden Center, I've got Sugar Baby, which I mentioned in the handout, is a shorter season, like smaller melon, so like a personal sized watermelon. And then this is a variety of cantaloupe, which tends to do a little bit better in our climate than watermelons in general. So 75 to 80 days on this cantaloupe, and on Sugar Baby, I think we're looking at 85 days, so a little bit longer on Sugar Baby. We've got some fun melons in seed form as well, and another one that is mentioned on the handout is Charentes, which is a like French type cantaloupe. This is another one of those. It's like 2 pounds. It's perfect for one person to eat or share if you're really generous and love somebody a lot. They are absolutely delicious, a little bit bigger than a handful, and we do have them from seed, which they could be directly sown outside. We're looking at 90 days to harvest. I've grown these before and I've gotten at least 10 to 12 melons from a single vine. So in a nice hot long summer, they can be quite productive, and you would then have enough that you're willing to share with a couple of really special people in your life. Speaking of special people in my life, I usually, in addition to growing a lot of tomatoes, I grow quite a few peppers, and that is because my husband loves to eat roasted red peppers, and he makes them at home, and so I'm always looking for good varieties of sweet bell pepper that will ripen here in our climate, that have that, for him, he wants those big thick walls, and that makes the best roasting peppers. But I am a big fan of, I like a little heat, so I like the padrones and shishitos. I also have to plant a jalapeno every year. And peppers are another one of those that do better in containers and raised beds actually than in the ground. Cool soil makes them grow slowly, and can often just sort of delay their fruit set or their flower set. Peppers will often begin setting fruit between 65 and 85 degree temperatures, so that we have a little bit of time before we get there, but it can grow good and get some size on it before it starts to flower. Peppers, though, also will produce more flowers than usually they can ripen as fruits. So I often will pick a few flowers off to reduce kind of the burden on the plant. This plant's just starting to put some flowers out, but to show you what I mean, you see the very beginnings of flowers here at the bottom of the, well, at the bottom of the top bit of leaf. So flower here, and then quite a few flowers forming, I don't know if you can see them, right into the center of the plant. So as these little buds get bigger, I'm going to actually pinch out a couple of the flower buds and just remove them so that the plant can ripen the remaining flowers to be bigger fruits. Now this is a variety called Carmen. This is one of those sweet red peppers that is more of like a sauteing pepper. This doesn't have the big thick walls, but it's going to be a delicious one that starts green, as most peppers do. They start green, and then leaving them on the plant, you will see them go through their colors to the color that they ripen that you want. So a green pepper will kind of slowly turn, maybe yellows and little oranges, and then eventually to the red that I want. Or a yellow, if it's a yellow pepper, you wait, it starts green and then starts to turn yellow. Red Beauty is a bell pepper, a sweet bell pepper. That is the one that I am growing for the thicker walls for roasting at home. So California Wonder is another great great bell pepper that you can eat green or yellow or even let it turn red. But it's got a thinner wall and it's more like our kind of slicing, salad type pepper. So beyond that, gosh, there's hot peppers. We've got cayennes, anchos, serranos, habaneros, Thai peppers, and other really fun ones. So if you like it hot, you can drought stress your peppers a little bit. So withhold water just a tad, and that's going to concentrate the capsaicin in there and get them even hotter for you. The range of pepper varieties is really, I'm going to plant several plants to get enough to harvest. So it's not like a tomato where you always are getting, on bell peppers where you're getting tons, but on a padrone or a shishito, the smaller peppers, a single plant can be quite productive. So it all kind of depends on the size of the fruit. With the bells and the larger peppers, I plant multiple plants to get enough for us, whereas the jalapenos and things, just one plant is enough. Squash, and the whole world of squash includes, as I mentioned, zucchini, different types of the summer thin skin squash, crookneck squash, patty pan squash, those are all different types of kind of zucchini types. Green zucchini or yellow. And then you'll see kind of a range of different plants available in that summer squash series. There are a few varieties that I highlight, again, I believe in the handout, that are a little bit more compact. So the one I have that I'm taking home is called Tasty Patio Black. Tasty Patio Black is a compact variety of zucchini. So, I mean, it's still going to be a pretty big size plant, but compact varieties you can plant like 3 to 4 feet apart, the more like a bush style of zucchini. A non-compact variety, just a regular garden variety zucchini, can get like 4 to 6 feet and spread quite a bit and take up a lot of space in your garden. So if you don't have a lot of space, you can look for a more compact variety, kind of plant it at the edge of your raised bed, for example, and it may, you know, take up a lot less space than the traditional vining types do. As I mentioned, squashes do require that consistent pollination, so making sure that you have flowers in your vegetable garden area to bring the pollinators in. If you look at squash flowers, both everything from pumpkins to zucchini to acorn squash, squash flowers produce both a male and a female flower. And it's obviously the male flower's job to pollinate the female flower, and it's the female flower that produces a fruit. So you will see some flowers open and close and fade away because they aren't capable of making a fruit behind them. Whereas the female flowers, once they've been pollinated, will close up, and then behind the flower itself, you'll begin to see the ovary swell and the fruit that actually develops later becoming the squash. So when we see some flowers not developing into fruits on our squash, it's possible that it's just a male flower. It's possible that you don't have enough other blossoms luring in pollinators, and those male and female flowers are not getting pollinated for fertilization. And then a final issue that we often hear with squash, which affects several of our favorite summer vegetable garden plants, is a poorly developing fruit and rotting beginning on the blossom end of the zucchini or the squash. This is referred to as blossom end rot. So as the zucchini begins to develop and the flower is sort of still attached at the far end away from the vine, the little bit of fruit at that end attached to the flower turns a tan or an off color and then sort of begins to shrivel just a little bit and look rotten, and it really no longer develops as a fruit. We suggest planting at planting time to increase calcium in the soil around tomatoes, as we talked about, but beans and squash as well, and peppers benefit from it too. So adding extra calcium can help reduce the chances of encountering blossom end rot as your fruits are developing. We use bone meal as one source of calcium in the planting hole. Lime is a second source of calcium in the planting hole. And then as we are planting, we also always apply a bit of the slow organic fertilizer that is tomato vegetable herb. And now the difference of this brand or blend of fertilizer from other blends is that this has 10% calcium as well. So calcium, and more calcium all can go into the hole at planting time. And then for follow-up feeding, every 6 weeks or 2 months, you can reapply a top dressing of the granular fertilizer, but you can also liquid feed with something like the all-purpose organic 323 to just kind of give your plants a nice constant supply of nutrition. It's also, where are we at? Oh, tomatillos. are another one of the kind of unique and fun plants that we can grow in our vegetable gardens. And tomatillos, of course, are going to make you fantastic salsas, and they're great roasted. They're a husk vegetable, which means that we find them kind of enclosed in a little dried paper skin, and the fruit is actually kind of protected inside that. Often, oh look, we're starting to see the little skins. Often the fruit will drop to the ground, and then you can harvest them straight off of the ground, and that little bit of paper protects them as they're sitting on the ground. So different types of tomatillos, or what can sometimes be called ground cherries, all grow in the same configuration. And I will take one of these off just for educational purposes. We see the great flowers on both of these tomatillos, giving us a early bloom. These are early maturing, and this is Toma Verde. So this is a green tomatillo with kind of a lemony, like a citrusy, bright lemony flavor is what tomatillos have. So if I open this little paper up, so here I just picked off the bloom, well, the fruit. So this is the tomatillo fruit just beginning to mature. The paper husk protects the actual developing fruit inside of it. So here's our baby tomatillo that will develop into, you know, the size of like a cherry tomato, a good sized cherry tomato. And then it'll be ready to harvest. Most likely it'll drop to the ground or be real easy to pick, and you'll know that it's ripe and ready for salsa. What you plant in your vegetable garden should be what you eat, what you crave in the summer, what you want to take straight to the barbecue and, you know, saute up some peppers and zucchini on the barbecue, or shish kebabs, or run inside and make the best salsa or salad you've ever had, ratatouille with your eggplants, whatever it is that you've been dreaming up. This is the time to put it in the garden and really eat the fruits of your labor, literally within a matter of months. When you look at the tags on your vegetables, they're almost always going to give you days to maturity. You will also see the same thing on seed packets, days to maturity. And this is all, the days are generally counted at the time of transplant. So when we see 60 days, for example, for our tomatillo to give us ripe tomatoes, we can look at our calendar. Here we are, May 13th. So 60 days puts us into mid-July, and we will be eating tomatillos in mid-July, and the nut harvest, as long as we continually harvest and feed them and take care of them through the heat of the summer, they will continue to produce for us. Tomatillos are not extremely self-fertile, which means that they benefit from cross-pollination of one to another. One tomatillo will give you plenty of fruit, but it's not as likely to be able to fertilize itself. So 2 tomatillos is the minimum planting for a real successful tomatillo harvest. So plant at least 2. You may have a few extra than you think you might need at the end, but you can always donate leftover or unused fruits and vegetables to either your food bank, or you can bring them into the Dennis's 7Ds nearest you on Wednesdays and Fridays. We have a program where we will then take them to our local food banks and get them straight out to hungry families. With all of that said, again, information for further support is in the handout that's attached to this video. One of my favorite resources, again, for Northwest vegetable gardeners in general, this is the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide. This is a handbook for anybody who wants to grow food year-round. and it's broken up month by month. So if we look into the May month, it tells us which vegetables and herbs we can sow outdoors. We can, then which flowers we can grow. Talks a little bit about basic plant nutrition. At the back of it, it has a whole kind of planting guide as to what we can grow when, for both the early cool seasons, the early and late, fall and early spring cool seasons, as well as summer gardening seasons, and a lot of really fantastic resources in here. I believe that it's only our Cedar Hills location that has the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide right now, but you could always do a search online for it at shop.dennis7ds.com and order it for curbside pickup at your convenience. If there are any questions that you may have, I will answer them in the in the comments after the video. But I gotta do another Zoom class right after this, so it'll be a little bit delayed. And hopefully I will run into some of you shopping veggies here at the Lake Oswego Garden Center within the next week or so when our selection is at its peak. As always, I appreciate you watching today. Thanks for watching and happy gardening.